Hello YouTube, Dave here again. So this is a video that I've had requested a couple of times, and funnily enough, it's a video that I had actually already fully recorded and was intending to upload before I took my break over the holidays, only to have a shipment arrive and sort of renders that video a bit outdated and obsolete. So today I'm going to be doing this for the second time, and I think this one's finally going to stick. And what that is it's the buyer's guide for the Starfinder role-playing game. To date, I've done buyer's guide for each of the D&D editions that have come out from 0 edition all the way through until the current 5th edition. And I wanted to do the same thing for the Starfinder role-playing game because there's a lot of stuff out there for it, and it's a system that I thoroughly enjoy and love to collect for. So, but I've had people ask me, as someone looking to get into it, what should they look to pick up? So I'm going to break this down into 2 parts. There's going to be a part for the players, what you should pick up, and then a part for the game masters, and obviously the part for the game masters is going to be significantly longer than the part for the players, but we'll still, go ahead and break it up that way anyway, because there are people that are looking to play the Starfinder game that ask these questions as well. So if I target the entire video to game masters, it's not going to be as effective for those. So the one thing that is an essential must-buy for both game masters and players is, of course, the Starfinder core rulebook. This is something that you pretty much need to play the game. And even though as a player you may not necessarily need your own copy, it's always best to have your access to your own rulebook. There are certain game masters out there, myself included, I'm not going to lie, that are pretty particular about letting other people use their books just based off of bad experiences in the past. And if you're serious about getting into a role-playing game, be it Dungeons & Dragons, Starfinder, Pathfinder, or any role-playing game for that matter, if you're serious about playing it, you should have at least the main core rulebook or player's book if there's one available. With Starfinder, the core rulebook has the player's handbook and the game master's guide all bundled into one. But as a player, it's still, I think, it's essential that you have this book if you want to be serious about playing the Starfinder role-playing game. And for the price, the amount of information that you get in this book, it's pretty well worth the value, I'd say. Even though you don't have to read all like the magic items or the stuff like that kind of equipment that's in the game, or necessarily read all the Game Master rules, you do have sort of a slight campaign setting information with some different planets and stuff to explore, which might be useful information for players to read, because I don't think any of it really gives too much away. Pathfinder Legacy rules, so if you have Pathfinder books, you can port characters and information from that game over into this. So, just a really overall essential purchase, whether you are a player or a game master. So this book appears on both lists. I'm just going to get it out of the way now, because there's no point in showing it again when I get into the game master information. So we'll just set this back here. Now, as a player, there's not really many of the hardcover books that I would consider important or essential for you to have. And in fact, when I first recorded this, the rule book was pretty much the only actual book that I had for the players to have. But as I've had an opportunity to think about it, the more I thought about it, the more it made sense for this book to appear on the player section rather than the game master section, and that is the book Armory. So Armory is a book that is full of equipment and just extra stuff for you to use for your characters. Now, if you're interested in seeing these in more detail, pretty much everything that I'm showing here today I've done videos on, so you can sort of see what the contents of the book looks like. So I'm not going to really flip through them here, but if you're a player, having the Armory book is something that I think just makes a lot of sense, because it gives you more options to customize your character. A game master can benefit from this book, but it's something that I would consider to be a lesser priority to the other hardcovers that I think a game master should have. And the equipment inside of the core rulebook is enough for most game masters to outfit their enemies, villains, stuff like that. So this is something that I would consider to be the only, at this time at least, the only hardcover book that a player really needs to pick up. So I could end it there, but there is one more optional product that I do actually recommend for player characters, and that is the player character folio. So this is sort of a folder style very extensive character sheet. And I did a video for this as well, so I'm not going to go through too much here, but there's a lot of really useful information in here. This is a massive character sheet that you can either use as a character sheet, or you can photocopy it and use the photocopies, because it doesn't have a lot of reusable value to it in terms of once you start marking stuff in and erasing it, it's going to be difficult to eventually stuff's going to wear out. So you can just photocopy the sheets, which is something that one of my players has indicated an interest in doing. But there's a lot of great reminders and gamer aids in here as well. Things like some of the common conditions, some hardness, actions in combat, zero gravity combat maneuvers. So there's a lot of really useful information in here for player characters that they can look up without having to necessarily go through and flip through the book too much. And there's a lot of page references as well. For example, if you are interested in something, or if there's a rule that you see that's in here that doesn't give you a lot of information, it does give you the page to flip to get more in-depth information. But this is a really just massive character sheet, and again, a lot of cool information in here. So if you're a player, this is something that I would highly recommend. So that's it for the players, actually. That's pretty much all that you need as a player. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the Game Master information. Alright, so the player section didn't really have a lot to it. It was pretty short and sweet. There's a lot more, though, to this game for Game Master. So we're going to go through, and again, for pretty much everything that I'm showing here, I have done videos for, so if you want to see a more comprehensive look at the items I'm going to be showing here, you can certainly, there'll be a playlist at the end of the video that you can click on and will take you to all this stuff. So, without further ado, let's just sort of get right into it. And so the first thing that I want to go over for Game Masters is we have our core rulebook, but what other books do we need to run the game? So I already addressed the Armory book. I consider that to be more of a player-focused book than a Game Master one. It is a useful pickup, but it's something that I would consider to be sort of the low-end priority when it comes to the hardcover books. The first book that I think you should pick up as a Game Master, if you're going to be running Starfinder after getting the core rulebook, would have to be the Alien Archive. So this is your bestiary, this is your creature catalog, monster manual for the Starfinder role-playing game. And this is the very first one that's come out. So there's a lot of very, very useful creatures in here, and a lot of creatures that get referenced in published products. So this is something that is sort of I would consider this to be an essential first purchase after you get the core rulebook. And there's a lot of great stuff in here. And again, if you want to see it in more detail, I'm pretty sure I did a video on it already. And if I haven't, let me know, and I can do a more thorough flip through in that video. But the biggest thing you need to know is that it has the Skittermanders, which are just one of my all-time favorite little furry critters in any sort of role-playing game. These guys are just unbelievably great. So Alien Archive is a must-have. Now there's also an Alien Archive 2 that was released not too long ago. At the time of this recording, there's also the announcement of an Alien Archive 3, but that's not going to be out for some time. And this is just, again, another collection of creatures. There's some cool stuff in here. There's some Lovecraftian type monsters in here with the Color Out of Space, with the Migos and stuff like that. Now, this is, a great purchase as well, but I would not recommend this one over Alien Archive 1. So this is, again, with the Alien Archives, it's quite simple. You just sort of pick them up in the order that they come out, at least at this point in time. Alien Archive 1 is what I consider to be essential, and if you want some more creatures after that, or you want a wider selection, then pick up Alien Archive 2, but make sure you pick up Alien Archive 1 first. And then the last book, hardcover, out at the time of this recording anyway, is the Pact Worlds book. Now, this book is your campaign setting information. And I may be a little bit just, biased because there's another role-playing game that I have a lot of stuff for whose current version is really lacking on campaign settings, but it's nice to have a campaign setting oriented book come out for this role-playing game. So the Pact Worlds takes you through the Pact World system, which is also depicted on the inside of all of the hardcover books that have been released to date. So really, really useful book. Again, a lot of great campaign setting information, inspiration for game masters if you want to run your own campaigns in there, or even if you just want to have more fleshed out information for your pre-written campaigns. There's a lot of great stuff in here. And I would consider this to be a very important pickup. Not necessarily the first thing you'd want to get. Alien Archive, I would say, would probably be the first book that you'll want to get. And then I would also honestly recommend Pact Worlds before Alien Archive 2. That's just me, though. It depends on if you like to create your own settings. But if you want to use the established one, the one that's already been set up for the role-playing game itself, then this is a very worthwhile pickup, in my opinion. And you really can't go wrong with any of these books. I mean, they're all really well done, in my opinion. So I don't really see anything that would be particularly disappointing with any of them. And I think that they are all worth having in your collection as a game master. But honestly, you probably want to take your time picking some of these things up. So pick up the core rulebook, Alien Archive, Pact Worlds, and then Alien Archive 2. So this is the order that I would recommend getting the hardcovers in if you're looking to get all of the hardcovers. And then after Alien Archive 2 as a game master, the one that I would prioritize least, like I said before, would be the Armory book, because I think it's more useful for the players. Alright, now there's more to the Starfinder role-playing game than just their hardcover books. There are a ton of great accessories and things to go along with the game as well. And if you're going to be a game master, and this depends on how you like to run your games, but I like to use these products, and this is the GM screen. Now again, I've done a full video on this. If you want to see that, it'll be in the playlist at the end of the video. You can just click on it and go to it from there. But the Game Master screen has a lot of useful information on there, and it's just good for hiding your notes and your rolls or your maps or stuff like that, so that your players aren't basically getting spoilers for the adventure or what's going on. So really, really worthwhile pickup, and the price again is actually not too bad. $19.99 US, and I guess I didn't go over the prices for the books, but again, I think that the books are more important to pick up if you want to run the game, and the value is good there anyway. With the accessories, the price may be a bit more of a concern because you may not want to spend a lot on stuff that's not necessarily essential to running the game. But this is actually not a bad price for the Game Master screen, and it's a pretty good screen as well. It's also one that stands higher up. It's more of a vertical screen, sort of like some of the older ones, which is actually kind of nice as well because it does a much better job of hiding your notes than the lower ones. Alright, another accessory that I consider to be very worthwhile if you're going to be running the Starfinder game is the Starfinder Combat Pad. This is a magnetic board that you can use dry erase markers on, wet erase, or what have you. And it also comes with magnetic pieces that you can write characters' names, monsters' names, important NPC names on. It comes with a turn tracker, with a round tracker. You can make notes about when certain effects may end, or conditions that may be on certain creatures, hit points for the monsters. This is just a really, really fantastic product, and I absolutely love using it. So this is something, again, that I would recommend picking up. The retail price on this is $24.99, and I guess just so that I can have it out here, the retail price for the hardcover books is $39.99 US for the supplementary books, and the core rule book I think is $50 US. Sorry, $59.99 US. But again, you're getting like a 500-page book for that, so well worth that. And you got the price for the books there as well. So we have our combat pad and we have our Game Master screen. But you may want to run the game using visual representations. I know for myself, I really like to use miniatures when I'm running combat. It just makes it a little bit cleaner and easier to determine where everything is, and everybody's basically going at this with the same idea, so they all know exactly where everything is in relation to one another. So with the Starfinder game, they don't have plastic minis out at this point in time, or very, very few, or they're licensed out to a third party. But they do have what I think are really, really useful are the cardboard stand-up pawns like they had for the Pathfinder role-playing game. So there's a few different sets out at the time that I'm recording this, but the one that I would honestly recommend picking up first would have to actually be the Alien Archive pawn box. So this is, again, part of it is, yes, I have a bias for anything that comes in a box set, but this is, I'm just going to slide this off to the side here. But this is a really, really fantastic package altogether. You get tons of creatures that you can use for your game, but it also comes with, and this is important, it also comes with a selection of bases. So at the time that I'm recording this, this is the only box set that we have out for the pawns or in general. So this is the only box set, but there are other pawns collections. There's one for the core rulebook, there's one for the first adventure path, and there's one for the Pact World set as well. Now this is actually a recent addition to my collection, and it's still sealed at this point in time. But the reason I recommend getting the Alien Archive pawn box first over the core rulebook pawn set, which is sort of buried away at this point, is because it comes with the bases, and these are just the sheets of the punch-out tokens. So you have to purchase the bases separately or use them from another product. I don't have the package with the bases in it at this point in time, but I do have the Alien Archive box set, and I do have a Pathfinder Pawns collection as well that came in a box with the bases. So again, I'd recommend getting this one first because it has the bases in there, and then pick up things like the core rulebooks and maybe even the Pact Worlds collection as well. Now, if you're going to be running your game using these minis, the next thing that I would recommend is having some sort of grid that you can use in order to be able to, visualize the battlefield. Now, Starfinder has a ton of these accessories, and I think that they are all fantastic, but I'm only going to show a handful of them here today, including two that I would recommend pretty highly, and that is the basic terrain flip mat. So this is just your run-of-the-mill standard combat grid. Now, I consider the metal side to be much more useful than the planet side because this looks like it's way zoomed out, and for all the features that are there. It just seems like it would make more sense for that to be a much larger scale. But I will say that the metal side here is perfect for use, and a lot of Starfinder combat is likely to take place like on ships or space stations or buildings, stuff like that. So really, really useful to have it for that. So one that, again, I would highly recommend. One that I consider to be nearly essential if you're going to be using miniatures in combat is the basic Starfield. So this is for your spaceship battles, which is an important part of the Starfinder role-playing game. And the ship battles use actual hexes rather than squares. So your turning is based off of like what side of the hex that you're facing. So really important, again, if you're going to be using miniatures. This is one that I would consider to be pretty much essential along with the basic one. Now, with the basic flip mat, if you have other things like the vinyl battle maps for other games or just stuff that's generic, then those are perfectly usable as well. But when it comes to the basic Starfield, I kind of recommend this one very highly because, again, it's going to be a lot more immersive to have like the actual space on there. And again, it uses hex versus regular squares, which a lot of games have sort of moved to at this point in time. So really, really worthwhile pickup. Now, there are a ton of other flip mats out there as well. There's one for a hospital, there's space station, there's like cantina. There's all kinds of really important, or not really important, but there's a lot of these flip mats that are out there. They're all, in my opinion, they're all great. They're all useful for different things, and they can spark your imagination when it comes to creating an adventure off the top of your head, or just, a homebrewed adventure in general. So I've done tons of videos for them in the past, so again, they will be available in that playlist. But the best one that I would use as an example is the Ghost Ship one. And this was one that as soon as I saw it, this map here in particular immediately gave me an idea for like a derelict ship that the players encounter in space that was the subject to weird experimentation sort of thing. So this was, a map that as soon as I bought it, I immediately had an idea how to use it. And I think that's what the beauty of these more specific flip maps are, is that they can just give you inspiration for your own homebrewed games. and having these just is absolutely fantastic. So really love these. There's a whole bunch of other ones to check out, but again, this is just sort of giving you an idea. But again, really great for trying to come up with your own adventures. Speaking of adventures, at this point in time, if you're looking to run pre-written games, there are some out there for you. So I've got my entire collection of Starfinder Adventure Path books here. I am missing, at this point, only one of all the ones that have been released so far. But if you're going to be running a Starfinder game, you may want to have a campaign ready for you, so you can just sort of pick it up and start playing. So at this point in time, there are 2 completed adventure paths that have been released, as well as 1 adventure path that is near completion at the time that I'm recording this. Now, you may want to look into all of these at some point. The one thing that I will say is that the current one, the Signal of Screams adventure path, which is not yet completed at the time that I'm recording this, is the only adventure path of the 3 that have come out so far that starts at a level higher than level 1. So if you're looking to start a game, I always recommend starting with first level characters and having them work their ways up. So this is something that I think would be a great purchase later on, but not something I would consider to be the best introduction to the game. This is also a horror-based adventure path, so there may be some concepts in there that's not necessarily going to appeal to every group that's out there. So this is the sort of thing that you may want to take a more, you may want to look more into first, and not something that I would recommend necessarily starting off a Starfinder campaign with, because again, you're already at 7th level at the time that you start this, so there's a lot of, you're getting into the more complex elements of the game before you've had a chance to play the more basic elements of it. So, cool adventure path. I do recommend it for the future, but it's not something that I recommend that you start off with. So that leaves us with our 2 other adventure paths. So the first one that was released was the Dead Sons adventure path. Now this has 6 parts to it, and at the time that I'm recording this, I have parts 1 through 5. And this campaign takes the players, I believe, up to like 15th level or so. I just want to see what the levels are in here, because it does give me an idea. I'm not going to worry about it too much right now. But basically, this takes you through quite a bit of your character's progression. So I think this starts this starts at 9th level, so I think you get up to like 13th or 14th by the end of it. So you get a lot of use out of this particular campaign path or adventure path. The one downside is that it is spread over 6 books, so it's more of an investment. But it depends on what kind of campaign you like to run. If you want to run something that's more long-term, then this is the one that I would recommend. It's got a lot of great information in here. The campaign itself seems to be pretty epic, although I haven't really been able to read much beyond parts 1 and 2 at the time that I'm recording this. But this seems like it is going to be a really great adventure, and if you're looking for a more long-term game, then this is certainly worth it. There's also information on different worlds in the Starfinder game, and different little other bits of information, including some creatures and stuff that not all of them appear in subsequent Alien archives. So there's definitely some value out of these products as well. The Adventure Path installments all run a price of around $22.99 US. So again, not a bad amount of not a bad amount to spend for several weeks of gaming per book, and some more information to add to your campaign settings, sort of thing. So these are really worthwhile. Now, if you want something that's a little bit shorter because you like to do your own adventures, but you don't really know how to start a Starfinder one, then the Against the Aeon Throne adventure path is the one that I would recommend. So if you want something a little bit shorter so that can be used as a jumping off point into your own homebrewed games, then this is going to be, I think, perfect for that. If you want a more long-term system or a long-term game, then this is going to be the one that you're going to want to pick up. But this is a really great adventure path as well. It's only 3 parts, and it goes up from first level up to the characters end at 7th level. So there's plenty of room to grow your own homebrewed game after that. Or if you run this into its conclusion and you want to keep going with published stuff, then that's when you may want to pick up stuff like the Signal of Screams. So that's for the adventure paths. I do plan on doing a videos or series of videos sort of going into more detail on all of the adventure paths, the first 3 at least at this point in time, and do some comparisons. So that's something that I haven't done yet, but I do hope to have done in the next month or so. So hopefully not too long after this goes up, I'll have those comparison videos out there. Now, there are a couple of other things that I do recommend for the Starfinder game as well, and these are really, really cool, just smaller accessories. They run about $11 or $13 US, but there's some really, really cool stuff here, and these are cards that you can use for the Starfinder role-playing game. The first one, excuse me, the first one is the condition cards. And I did a video for these, so if you want to see them in full detail, you can certainly do that. But these have all of the different conditions that you can have applied to your characters in the Starfinder role-playing game. There's 53 double-sided cards. They give you 3 sets overall total. And honestly, these are really, really useful because conditions play a large role in these like OGL-style games. And rather than trying to have like the page bookmarked in the core rulebook, it's just great to have these cards, and the artwork with the goblins on them is just fantastic and really, really cool. So condition cards, I wouldn't say this is necessarily an essential pickup, but these will make your life easier as a game master, especially if you have a couple of these or if you have players that end up buying these, so that you can just tell them what condition it is, they can find the card, and they know everything that applies to them. So really, really worthwhile picking that up. And the next one is one that I think is just going to be a lot of fun, and it makes the natural 20 a lot more interesting at your table, and that is the Starfinder Critical Hit deck. So this one is $10.99, whereas the condition cards were $12.99. You get 53 cards in here as well. However, they are single-sided, and they just have the image of the Skittermander holding up the die with the 20 showing on the back. So I actually already have my critical hit deck in a different box, fully sleeved, so that they can be shuffled, because you want these to be sort of randomized. But the critical effects are great. A lot of them either supersede or they can add on to just the effect of doubling your damage. They can impose penalties or conditions or other things along those lines. And these are just a lot of fun. So again, not an essential pickup, but if you've gotten most of the stuff that you want, so you picked up your books, you have an adventure that you want to run, you have your pawns and your maps if you're going to use them. This is something that I would recommend sort of at the later end of your buying, or if you just want to have some really cool stuff with criticals, then this is again a really worthwhile pickup. There is going to be released in the not too distant future a critical fumbles deck, and you better believe I'm going to be getting that and using that in my game as well. So there you have it. That is my buyer's guide for the Starfinder role-playing game. So just a sort of a quick recap here. We have what I would consider to be the more valuable or worthwhile pickups. Of course, you have to have the core rulebook. Alien Archive 1 is the book that I'd recommend after that. Pact Worlds after that, then Alien Archive 2, followed by Armory as a game master if you're interested in having expanded equipment, but I would recommend getting these 3 first over the Armory book because I feel Armory is better for your players. Game Master Screen and Starfinder Combat Pad I think are also going to be really, really worthwhile pickups. Then you have your pawn collections. I would recommend getting the Alien Archive pawn box first, if for no other reason than it gives you a ton of monsters to use for your game, but it also gives you the bases, and then you can look at getting the Pact Worlds core rulebook and stuff like that. Then finally we have just some accessories in the cards. And we have our adventure paths, which I would honestly recommend starting with either Against the Aeon Throne if you want something a little bit shorter, or the Dead Suns adventure path if you're looking for a more long-term game that has 6 parts rather than 3. So, there you go. That is my Starfinder buyer's guide. If you have any specific questions, let me know. If you're interested in seeing some of these products in greater details, I've done videos for most of them. I haven't done too many of the adventure ones yet, but I will be hoping to correct that in the upcoming, month or two that follows the release of this video. Anyway, I hope you guys found this helpful, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Take care.